Welcome back to LFG, the unfiltered franchise podcast of news, weather, and sports. Just kidding. Franchise education for you franchise folk listening. This is my co-host,
I'm Leanne Caruso.
and I'm Michael Hyam. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Hey, today is super exciting. We have a whole bunch of people on. We've got a big old panel, and there's some of the smart marketers in the franchise industry. We have Will Fraker, the VP of Brand Performance and Marketing of the Good Feet store. We have Marci Kleinsasser, the VP of Marketing of Franchise Development at Home Franchise Concepts. We have Ashley Mitchell, the VP of Marketing at East Coast Wings, and we have Angela Pauls, the CMO at Buzz Franchise Brands. And they are going to talk about all of the things and insights that these smart marketers learned in the last few days in Fort Worth at the Franchise Mastermind.
Oh, love it. The Hello Mastermind.
The Hello Mastermind, powered by Franchise Assembly.
Love it.
It's really good. These guys are so smart, and a lot of fun too. We had a really great time, so I'm excited to have them on.
I don't think anyone in the franchise community missed it, seeing the 10,000 LinkedIn posts and we love Leanne. I love
The good
it.
thing is they're all marketers, so they like to market.
Oh my, that is one way to boost it. I love it. Yeah,
Right?
no,
I
that
didn't even pay anybody to do that.
unbelievable. It was amazing. Just watching it and seeing everything, I'm like, oh my gosh, this looked like an amazing, a good time, and I'm sure you learned some stuff too.
Yeah. No, it was intense during the day, but at night we had a really good time. We even learned to line dance, and we got a backstage tour. We went out on a rodeo field and watched the cattle drive in the stockyards, and we ate a
Awesome.
ton of amazing food. I've never had such good food in my life. It was really good.
And was that a mechanical bull that I saw, or was that just stationary?
It was stationary.
Oh, okay. I'm like, how is there four people on this bull that is upside down? And
Right. No, it was stationary, but those pictures I have, I'll be saving for any bribery that's necessary.
there you go. Love it. And oh my gosh. So while you were in Dallas, I was on the other side of the state in Texas running the Houston franchise show. You're lucky you didn't come out to this one because we were hit by a tornado.
I heard
Um,
that.
yeah. Oh, did you hear about that?
I did hear about that.
It
Seems
was
pretty
pretty wild, actually. I'm gonna keep it quick. So I'm at dinner, and me and Sean, my coworker, we get these notifications on our phone: beep, 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 beep. If you're outside, leave now. Go indoors. Go indoors. And so we're like, oh shit, we better get to the car and go. And so I get into the car, and we're going, and I see like black in front of me, and I'm like, we're headed towards the tornado. Like, what are we doing? And here we are driving, and all of a sudden it starts pouring like cats and dogs. You know, when the wipers are going so fast and you still can't see out your windshield. And then we're getting beep, beep, beep. If you're driving, you should pull over right now. I kid you not. It was crazy. We see these pylons blowing in the air, and at one point all of the traffic lights stopped and everything was, there was no, and it was just nuts. Anyways, we got back to the hotel safe and sound. It probably should have pulled over, but it was like an insane week. And of course the show must go on, so we continued with the franchise show. It went on, except at starting at 5:30 in the morning the next day, I started getting emails and phone calls. Is the show on? Is the show on? And what's going on? What like, my head was ready to explode. And until we emailed everyone, yes, we're going to continue with the show. Everything's okay. We still have full power. It's all good. And I got this one response from Colin at the Melting Pot, which was pretty funny. I got to give it to him. He's like, if there's anyone that is going to fight God and acts of nature, it's Michael Hyam. Something to that effect. It was really cute.
The show always goes on with Michael Hyam.
Yeah, I never fight God, but yeah, but yeah, hey, the show must go on, and we did go on, and thankfully, I got to tell you, the show was slammed. Like, I don't know how or what, but people came out like never before. It was pretty insane. So that was my week.
Great. That's great. You came into Houston like a tornado. Maybe you were the tornado.
Maybe I should have stayed home. All right. Anyway, so let's get to it. Here's what's growing on. This segment is sponsored by Franchise Assembly, a franchise events company bringing resources and education to franchise brands and people. What's growing on, Leanne? Is this me or you?
That's you.
All right. So I kind of like this one. I kind of don't like it, kind of don't. I have a bit of mixed feelings. So the IFA recently released policy recommendations to strengthen consumer protection and improve financial disclosures. Recommendations include improvements to FTC pre-sale disclosure, franchise due diligence, and third-party seller disclosures that will encourage responsible franchising. And what I mean by I like it and don't like it, of course, as a sales guy, we're ready to close. Let's go. What's up? But of course, I digress. We want to make sure that we're selling and proper and not just taking someone's life savings and all that good stuff. So this is actually a good thing when you look at it.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great thing. All right, look who's franchising now. In the spring 2024 edition from Nation's Restaurant News highlights new and emerging food service franchises that have announced their franchising plans or signed their first franchisees. I thought this was kind of cool because they had some cool concepts here. From bagels and biscuits to acai and bites meant to accompany a pickleball game, my new favorite sport. These 7 early to mid-stage concepts are either making the leap into franchising for the first time or just signing their first franchisee. So here's a couple that stood out to me that I thought were kind of cool. One is called Cluster Truck, which is a ghost kitchen that cuts out the delivery app middleman and employs its own fleet of delivery drivers, along with running its systems on in-house developed software. That's pretty interesting. The Pickle Pad, I know that there's a lot of pickleball concepts coming out, but this one sounds good. Plus it's Florida-based. A pickleball themed activity space not only offers 20 different game and activity options for guests, but it will also feature a chef-driven restaurant, Crave Social Eatery, which will offer a full service restaurant and bar with options like sandwiches, pizza, smoothies, and charcuterie.
Amazing.
Sounds
So
pretty yummy.
have
It might-
you actually pickleballed?
I have pickleballed.
You have.
I
I must
have.
be the last person on the planet that hasn't done it
You
yet.
are. I love it. It's like tennis light or like grown-up ping pong. Somewhere in the middle. It's really cool. It's fun.
Okay.
Almost anybody can do it.
All right. Oh, so maybe I can do it then. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. I said almost.
Oh my gosh. All right.
Hey,
All right.
listen, you and I have both noticed this and we keep talking about it. I've heard other people mentioning it too. You even made a post on it about LinkedIn, but what do you think is going on with LinkedIn?
Linked. Don't get me started. Okay. So, I mean,
I'm getting you started.
we've
Oh,
chatted about this a little bit. There is a lot going on with LinkedIn right now. I don't know exactly what it is, but I used to get 3, 4, 5,000 impressions on my posts, and now it's like 1,000 to 2,000 if I'm lucky. So I have figured out a couple of things. So number one, and you have to do this separately on your phone, and you have to also do it separately on your desktop or I guess your laptop. I haven't. Anyways, you need to change the setting at the very top. When you're doing a post, you click on post at the very top. There will be something that says connections only to everyone and a few other options there. Most definitely, when you do to everyone, it will go out to everyone, supposedly. I still don't think it does, but it goes out to a lot more than connections only. It has defaulted for whatever reason to connections only. So I changed it on my phone, and then I did another post through my desktop, and it went to connections only. So you need to change them separately. I mean, I've been scouring the internet for, what's going on LinkedIn and looking for articles and all kinds of stuff. And you know how it is with technology, everything's so outdated. But one of the things that I picked up again, and it's something that we all know, but just to reaffirm, is well, 2 things. Let me give you 2 tips. Number one, everyone gets these million requests from all kinds of people that are all over the place. Obviously your industry people, accept them. But the more people you accept and they have nothing to do with your industry, they're really just diluting you. If they don't interact with you, you're not going to get impressions. So that is not a good thing. And the second thing, of course, is tagging people, right? So when you're tagging people, make sure that you're tagging people that you know, and make sure you're tagging people that are going to interact with you, because it works backwards. If you tag people and they don't interact, your post is going to receive less visibility. So just make sure that you're doing that. And as we get more LinkedIn news, I'll be happy to let you know.
Our new in-house LinkedIn expert. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm getting so many requests. I told you this, of people who are not related to franchising. And my posts, the algorithm has definitely changed. And then I do notice that a lot of people tag me and stuff, some people that I don't even know. So I would advise against doing that sort of tagging, like you said. So
Yeah.
anyway,
What
well,
else do we got?
thanks for sharing and doing the good work research for the rest of us. So I'm wearing my Young Concert shirt, and I decided I was going through my closet the other day, and I have so many franchise shirts that I decided that I'm going to wear them on the podcast. So every podcast, I'm just going to wear a different shirt, a different franchise shirt. But today, in honor of YoungCon, I wanted to announce that Tiger Adjusters won the Shark Tank at YoungCon in the last few weeks. Tiger Adjusters is known for their tech-enabled approach to public adjusting, provides expert insurance claims assistance for property damage, and ensures that homeowners and commercial property owners receive fair settlements from insurance companies. Their use of advanced technology, including drones and 3D scanners, sets them apart in the industry. So congrats to Tiger Adjusters. I know that that's a fun thing that they do at YoungCon. If you want to,
Awesome.
if anybody has any ideas or news to share of what's growing on in your world, send us an email to podcast@franchiseassembly.com.
And I will just represent us, Leanne, Franchise
Okay.
Assembly.
I had my franchise assembly shirt on and then I changed it.
All right. Franchise Royals. What's that segment about, Leanne?
Franchise Royals is our segment where we scour LinkedIn, which we don't really scour because we're on all the time. But we find news from our friends and colleagues in the industry and the good things that they're up to. And the Franchise Royal segment is sponsored by Northeast Color. Northeast Color specializes in brick and mortar branding solutions for the multi-unit and franchise industries. They have years of experience producing branded interior and exterior signage for national chains of all sizes and varieties. Who is your Franchise Royal?
So I don't think he has posted this on LinkedIn, and I know it's getting around a little bit, but I have to give this kudos to my coworker, Dennis Colivis, who is unfortunately leaving us after over 10 years of working at National Event Management. Dennis he has been mainstay with us. He has been a phenomenal coworker. He's been a great colleague. He sells like a banshee. Everything you can want in a salesperson. But I understand, of course, when it's time to retire, you want to get out and smell the roses a little bit. And so this is really bittersweet. But Dennis, my friend, this shout out is to you. Wishing you a great retirement. Only good times, lots of fun with the family. And please feel free to drop by the office anytime and come say hi. And I know you're big into the pickleball. So, now that you're going to have some time on your hands, maybe invite me out to a pickleball session and you can kick my butt and we'll be competitive at that.
There you go. Everybody loves Dennis. That's going to be sad not to have him at events.
I know. And we're going to have a good one. I'll save I'll save it. Nothing.
Okay. Well,
Who's your Royal?
my franchise royal. This time we have two kings. Last couple times we've had all queens. But mine goes out to Graham Chapman, who just made a very big announcement this week that he's leaving 919 after 15 years and forging his own path now. I'm so excited to see what he's up to. Sounds like he's going to be making some big announcements in the next few weeks, but definitely a big focus on Zor Forum. We were lucky to have Zor Forum at the Let's Grow conference, and they held a couple of mastermind sessions. So I know that there's big opportunity there for Graham and whatever he decides to do next. So kudos to you, Graham, and can't wait to see what's next for you.
That's crazy. Congrats, Graham, and good luck with everything. We'll keep us updated.
Sure.
All right. And so before we bring on Will, Marci, Ashley, Angela to the show and tell, here's a quick ad from Subtle Strauss.
Franchisors love Subtle Strauss because we protect their brand standard across all marketing channels. Z's love our marketing platform because they can customize, print, download, and mail brand right collateral for their local market in minutes. Want to see how it works? Connect with me, Karen Wenning, on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. All right. So the next segment is what you're all here for, which is the show and tell, where all of our guests drop some amazing franchise knowledge surrounding the industry, in this case, marketing. And we're going to get into all of that. Best practices, ideas, thought leadership, so on and so forth.
So this group, which we're super excited to have, as I mentioned earlier, we are just coming off the heels of Fort Worth. We went to a franchise CMO mastermind. And so we learned a lot of information. We shared a lot of insights with each other and kind of helped each other in a peer advisory group setting to solve challenges and insights. So what we really wanted to do was bring together the advisory committee that we have for Hello Mastermind and kind of talk through some of the high level points that we learned this past few days at Fort Worth. And so we're super excited to have Marci Kleinsasser, Angela Pauls, Ashley Mitchell, and Will Fraker. And I'll let you guys introduce yourselves because your bios are way too long. So Marci, you want to get us started?
Thanks, Leanne. Thanks, Michael. Great to be here. So hi, I'm Marci Kleinsasser. I'm the Vice President of Marketing for Franchise Development at Home Franchise Concepts. We are a home services platform company with 10 brands, and we have over 1,500 franchise owners servicing over 2,600 territories across the United States and Canada. Great to be here.
Angela?
All right, I'm Angela Pauls. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for Buzz Franchise Brands. We are also a multi-brand company focused in the services space, and our brands are Pool Scouts, Home Clean Heroes, Wonderly Lights, and British Swim School. And we have about 270 franchisees operating about 400 locations, with another 100 in the mix to open. So excited to be here as well.
Exciting. Ashley?
Hi, I'm Ashley Mitchell. I am the VP of Marketing for East Coast Wings and Grill. We've been around for over 20 years, have 35 locations, intentional growth on that side, and we can get to that if we want to in a little bit. And I've been in franchising for about 10 years and excited to be here with you guys. I didn't get enough of you earlier this week.
Never enough.
And last but not least, Will? You're on mute.
Will Fraker, I'm the VP of Brand and Performance Marketing at the Good Feet store. We have 250 plus locations, close to 300 by the end of the year. We specialize in personalized arch supports for people with feet, knee, hip, and back pain. We have about 25 plus, 30 plus franchisees across the United States. And I'm excited to be here.
Great. So we're going to talk about a lot of topics. We covered some really great stuff in Fort Worth, everything from branding to lead gen to the value of peer advisory groups. So let's just get started with, the one that everybody wants to hear about is lead gen, but really kind of talking about it more from a branding and top of funnel perspective. So Marci, I'd love to hear your thoughts on kind of some of the insights that you guys learned over the last few days.
Yeah, so it was interesting as we all brought kind of our challenges and what we wanted to kind of get peer advisory from. A lot of us were struggling or wanted to hear from our peers about how to balance lead gen with kind of top of funnel and brand awareness. So some of the kind of the key points we shared as a group were helping our franchisees understand the value of bringing brand awareness on top of our lead gen. And so how important it is to kind of elevate the brand awareness, not only locally, but from a national perspective. And how do we do that? So some of us were sharing kind of, using brand development or national ad fund dollars and helping to educate our franchisees. So making sure that our franchisees understood the value of those brand development dollars and bringing those together to whether you're forming co-ops to use dollars to do that, or simply your brand development fund dollars nationally, because the top of the funnel is so critical to affecting local lead gen.
Great.
So that was one really important topic. I think that was really shared amongst all of the marketing leaders. I think we're not only struggling with that, but definitely doing that within their brands.
Yeah. Any other thoughts there?
I would just add to that one of the little nuggets that that really hit home with me in that conversation too was thinking about like lead to close time as a metric for brand awareness. So if people are already aware of your brand, they typically move through that funnel faster. So that's another way that having effective brand campaigns out there can support what we're trying to do from a lead gen standpoint.
I think that was actually a really good conversation because oftentimes when we think about the top of the funnel, we're concerned about how we measure top of the funnel well. We most of us can have things in place to measure bottom of the funnel conversions, but how do we really understand the top of the funnel impact that something like maybe a TV spot or a radio ad has? And so we actually had some really good dialogue about some of those key metrics. Angela mentioned one of them about how we might measure the impact of top of funnel over time because it is something that's going to happen over time. The people at the top of the funnel aren't going to buy today or tomorrow. That's why they're there at the top of the funnel. So we can't afford to not be in front of them. But how do we be in front of them well, but also in an intelligent way where we're measuring that from the top all the way down to the bottom? And to Marci's point, how do we decide who takes the top of the funnel or who's invested there? And maybe who's invested at the bottom? Are we both doing it? So there was lots of good discussion about it.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, Will. I think from the franchisee's perspective, of course, they're thinking, how can my dollars that I invest not only into the national ad fund, but locally, how is that going to bring money into my pocket? And so we did talk about coming up with the most simplistic kind of equation, if you will, to share how dollars can then translate into money into the franchise owner's pocket. And so all of our kind of branding conversations translated into kind of data and metrics. And so that really kind of morphed into, well, how do you bring kind of data into every conversation with your franchisees, but don't let the franchisee kind of sway you out of bringing in top of the funnel campaigns into your brand because they are still so important.
Yeah. And I was just at another thing that we talked about in that is like how to show, because it's always hard to track marketing in general, right? So like we're talking about all things marketing are hard to track, and then let's like track the thing that is the hardest to actually show movement in. So we just like to make our lives difficult, but we talked about doing, some A/B testing where you can show if you're doing it in some markets and not in others, and then show, to Marci's point, the impact of the bottom line, because at the end of the day, that's what franchisees care about.
Yeah,
Right.
we're storytellers. It often takes a big effort on our part if you're sitting in this marketing role about how to tell that story well. Because Marci, to your point, how am I making money? What's in it for me? That's the question that we get all the time. And if we don't have a good story to help tell why it is we should be running top of funnel and how that impacts bottom of the funnel, that's on us. So it was a good discussion.
Yeah, and I'll just add some of the measurements we talked about. Certainly with, aided and unaided awareness research projects. Well, those are expensive. So we did share, some tools just to, use your customer database and check in with your customers on how they're feeling about your brand and, how they made their decisions to reach out to you. Potential trier rejector type of studies, those that maybe touched your brand but didn't choose to purchase from your brand. So there's ways to do it without kind of large research projects that maybe you considered if you were doing total brand awareness studies. It's nice to have those, and if you have those in your budgets, it's great to do those maybe every 3 to 5 years. But franchisees may you might not be able to fund those to really show those large kind of typical brand awareness metrics.
That's a great segue actually into our next topic. Angela, if you want to tell us one of the great things you were talking about at the mastermind was data and research, right? The importance of accessing all possible data, identify problems, support decisions, build credibility. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, I think data is so important for us to be able to make smart marketing decisions, and then also to carry down that communication piece to the franchisees and helping them understand why we're doing what we're doing and what the results have been. And so Marci just mentioned a few of kind of the types of data, but really everything. I mean, sometimes we get stuck just in the campaign metrics, the typical KPIs that we're all used to. But in a lot of the conversations we had, it was like sometimes we have to make sure that we're stepping back and thinking bigger picture too, and going back to the fundamentals of marketing, which is, what is my customer think? And then as franchise systems, what do my franchisees feel about this? And what is the problem they think we should be solving versus the problem I think we should be solving? And that can kind of change how you approach things. So really, like Marci said, touching base with your customers, doing regular intentional customer surveys where you're not just asking them to ask, but you have an interest and motivation in the type of thoughtful data you want to get from them. Also, regular ongoing feedback through things like NPS, Net Promoter Score, types of systems, Google reviews, whatever it may be, you can gain a lot of insights from that. Doing something similar on customer profiling. So, hopefully you have some sort of brand personas, or you've done some back end analysis of your customers to have a good definition of what they look like. On the franchisee side, we talked about making sure that we're including them in the conversation. We're using our FACs, our marketing committees. There's great options out there like the Franchise Business Review survey to get some third-party honest input from our franchisees on where their priorities are, to make sure that the problems that we think are the problems they're in alignment with, and that we're moving the needle in the right places. Marci mentioned some of those bigger kind of studies. There's really incredible stuff you can do with marketing research groups and agencies, and some of those can be really pricey, but if you have the opportunity, and depending on the size of the initiative, those can be great. Or incorporating focus groups into those sorts of projects can really be telling, because they're a little more open-ended. You can get a little bit more unexpected feedback sometimes in those. But there are also options through things like Google surveys or SurveyMonkey surveys, where you can more affordably find and be able to access consumers or target profiles to get some feedback in certain areas that you want. So I think that was a big kind of theme of think about all the different data and what's going to be most impactful for the problem you're trying to solve. And sometimes I think in some of the conversations we kind of came around to what you think is your problem was not really your problem. I think if you talk to your customers, you'd find out it might actually be this, or your franchisees, it might actually be this. So that was kind of insightful and fun and challenging in some of the conversations we had as well.
Yeah, and that like goes back to just like the style of how we were tackling these problems is having, like, Angela talked a little bit about that unfiltered outside perspective. We were able to be that to each other because we all brought a problem to the table. And at the end of it, I think all of our problems weren't actually, we solved for the root of the problem, not the problem that we all brought and thought that we had. So by asking those intentional questions and things, and, on the topic, Angela was talking about surveys and being intentional in how you ask it. That was a huge takeaway for me, because my part of my problem, and it's not really a problem, but it's that I'm newish to this role. So been less than 2 months. And so I'm trying to figure out what's working, what's not, all of that. And I've asked franchisees, and, I'm not getting a ton of feedback, and everyone's like, well, all you're asking is what's working, what's not. You're not being specific and they don't know what to ask you to tell you what they think is working and not, because you're not being specific enough. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I do that with consumers, didn't do that with franchisees. So
yeah, I do. Just to add to that, I do think as we were listening to everyone's proposed challenge, I think every single one, as different as they all were, all of us asked the question, or the recommendation was, do you have data on X, Y, or Z? Or can you get data on this to help you solve or approach your challenge in a unique way, as you said, Ashley, or in a different way or a different perspective? Or if you had data around whatever this is or that is on the approach to the challenge. So I guess the point I'm making is, with all those fantastic suggestions you just listed, Angela, and I hope someone was taking notes on that, because your list was amazing. Really, the summary there was, data helps to bring perspective on every marketing challenge, and it's really the place to start. And if you don't have really a full dashboard, if you will. If you're not sophisticated, enough to have that, depending on the life of your franchise or the budget in your franchise, which we learned in the varying stages of all of our brands, that's okay. There's lots of different resources to help. There's peers that can help, but there are lower cost sources that can certainly help you, even if you don't have a full, business intelligence or BI dashboard built for you.
Great. Nice shout out to our friends over at Franchise Business Review too. But it was unanimous kind of at our table that that's such a critical survey to do to be informed about how your franchisees actually feel about what's going on in your system.
And shout out to Michelle Rowan, because I live texted her from our table because we had a specific question and she got right back to me.
Well, there you go. So Will, one of the things that you found valuable is laying foundations and having a strong infrastructure for your marketing team and process. What were your thoughts there?
Yeah. I think this is crucial for us, especially if you're an emerging brand. What I mean by foundations and infrastructure is, so one of the things that we do when we get together like this is we're able to talk about our one thing that we're dealing with in the franchise system that we're a part of. And oftentimes it'll rely on a key piece of data that we're finding or an insight that we're gathering from franchisees or from our consumers or from the CRM. And so one of the things that just is a theme is we ask the question like, okay, well, where are you getting that information from, or what data are you relying on, or where's that original source of information? And it always comes back for me is that when you're building these brands, whether you're established or you're just starting out, is you have to make sure that you have good infrastructure in place. And so what I mean by that is having, for instance, a good CRM, and that's actually bringing in customers, that is giving you good data on what those customers are doing, last touch points, maybe the ability to automate things. Maybe it's on the analytics side. Do you have a vendor partner, or do you have a good set of BI tools? Marci mentioned that are allowing you to actually capture the data that's coming in. One of the things that I've loved doing in my time in franchising is being able to set up these infrastructure pieces that are so crucial, because at the end of the day, you can't make good decisions with the data that you have if you don't have good data to begin with. And so I think it's really important for anybody who works in a business, period, but in franchising in particular, because you have so many sources of data. You don't just have the corporate flow of information coming in from, let's say, the website or the CRM, but you've got 250 other franchisees who are also doing and owning and operating their own local businesses. And so if we don't have good infrastructure, then you're going to come to the table and say, hey, I've got a problem. Brand awareness isn't working. And we'll make suggestions like, are you tracking this or that? And you're going to go back to your data set. If you haven't built good infrastructure, it's going to be really difficult for you to answer those questions well. So it's just something that for me is super crucial when I either come into a franchise system and even in our own system. We have a lot of great data, but there's still a lot of questions to ask. And fortunately, we can go to these data sources that we've already set up in place. We're not perfect, but we're getting there, and say, hey, here are the answers to those questions. So foundations and infrastructure was such a crucial topic for me, and a good takeaway from this last week.
Yeah. And then also like how to use, it's one thing too, how do you use it internally? And then what do you choose to share with your franchise system to not overwhelm them? Because we have all this data and all these different places that we're getting it from. And, there's some people that love to look at that data. I'm not that person. We have a unit level economics team and they look at all that data and tell me what it's saying. And I love that. But some people like Will love to dig in and see all that data. Most franchisees, some of them might want it, but they're not going to understand it. And that's just going to breed more questions. And so making sure that you're taking that data and distilling it down to what do they really care about? And that goes back to what's in it for them and what, is it making them money?
That's great.
Yeah.
Yes. So, sorry, I was going to say that point is phenomenal, because even, when you think of micro emerging brands and the entrepreneurs that are creating these businesses to hopefully have franchisees come on board, a lot of the times, if they're a kitchen renovation franchise or they're a pizza franchise, they know how to do what they're doing, but they have no idea of all these things that they're going to need to relay on to their upcoming franchisees. So the importance of setting that foundation and having the infrastructure, is so important. I love that. One of the other topics that was mentioned was leadership and building teams. Ashley, if you want to tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so this kind of goes a little bit back to what Will was saying. Like, infrastructure is not just your technology, it's the people that you have on your team and how you're supporting your franchisees. And so you have to get all of the systems in place, but people need to manage those systems, and people need to also manage those relationships. So, this topic came up with everyone of what is the size of your team. As we, started having our conversations, it was, tell us how many units you have, tell us what your AUV is, tell us what your team looks like. Because when we get into the problem, if you're saying you have to do all this stuff and you have a team of 1, well, then we're going to have very different solutions for you than if you have a team of 10, then you can divide this stuff up. And so, that's one huge topic of how do you decide what seats you need and then who those people are? And it's really making sure that you decide the seats first before the people, so that you're not just bringing people in and then you don't know how to divide up that information and who's doing what brands are they working on. Are they working on the Fran Dev side? Are they working on the consumer side? Are they working on both? What does that look like? And we all know everybody's team is structured a little bit differently, but figuring out what each of our teams need was a huge thing. And like, that's something, for me specific, this was a big part of my topic, being new to a role and figuring out, okay, we have been growing intentionally the way that we want to grow. And now we're going to, put some gas on it. What do I need to make that happen? Because right now we currently have, a relatively small team. And I came to the group and said, what would you prioritize in my situation? Here's everything that you need to know about what we've done, what we're doing. What would you prioritize? And so by the end of it, everyone pretty much unanimously agreed on like what positions that they would prioritize, which is super helpful to go back. And now I have to figure out, okay, so when do I bring those people in? And then how do they fit in with that other infrastructure that Will was talking about and all of those things? And is it bringing people in or is it partnering with vendors and what that looks like? And everybody has to make that decision themselves, but being able to talk it out with the group really helps you kind of focus and again, changes the lens on what your problem actually is. Is the problem that you don't have enough people, or is the problem that you're looking for the wrong people? All of those different things.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. I think what was helpful and remains helpful with this group is to see all the possibilities. Because sometimes when you're in a team structure, you're just kind of, for lack of a better description, on automatic pilot. Like, your goals and you're just moving along. But sometimes when you understand some different possibilities, you can kind of take a step back and go, oh, if I maybe tweak this, or maybe if I can achieve the goal with, this person, or this different position, rather, not the person, then I could maybe double my goals, or I can achieve something differently. So it's really helpful when we can kind of look to everyone and be able to ask questions. Well, how did you achieve this goal with this structure? Because I think what Ashley just said, it's not the person, it's the position, or it's the what you're trying to accomplish through your teams. And that's where it really became helpful to kind of talk that through and understand the possibilities. I know with one of the challenges we were trying to solve, it was like, wait, that's not how you're going to do it through the people. You can do it this way, or with the team that you have. So that became extraordinarily helpful.
Yeah.
I think oh, go ahead, Angela.
Go ahead, Bill.
Nope.
It was
I've
bad.
already
We were
talked
going to have
enough.
to talk over each other at some point, right? In a
Yes, it was
four-person
going to
panel.
happen.
I was just going to say, I think being able to have the conversation was helpful too, because not every company, like you mentioned, we're not structured the same, but also different titles mean different things. I mean, sometimes you'd hear a title and be like, okay, but what does that person actually do? And how would I compare that to the roles that we have on my team or within my organization? So it was helpful to be able to have a full conversation rather than just going online and trying to look up titles of other companies and compare with what you have. And then the only other comment I was going to add on that too was, I think talking about, hiring the right people for the skill set that you need. But the other piece of it is really making sure you're bringing in people that fit the culture of your organization is just as important, if not more so, than having the skill set. Because if they don't align with what you're trying to do at a high level and the way that you believe you have a commitment to the franchisees and to that level of support, they might have a great technical skill set, but not the right, they might not end up being happy in the kind of organization and culture that you have, which is going to become a bigger pain point for not just them and not just their manager, but others within the organization that are feeling that, and trickling down to the franchisees as well.
And the only other thing I was going to add was actually all of you guys fantastic pieces of feedback. The only thing I was going to add was on how sometimes we had to have conversations about how to communicate that value well above us, right? We all have our CEOs or CMOs or CBOs who expect results from us, and how we work well with our leadership, communicating what it is we're trying to accomplish and what we're doing. And we had a lot of really good productive conversations about how to share that value well with those who don't sit in our chair and understand how it is we do what we do, or why we're making a decision to invest in something that maybe doesn't directly affect the bottom line, and how to communicate those things well. So I thought some of those leadership conversations were also really, really valuable, because it's always important.
Yeah. And also talking about how you invest in your team. So you have to figure out the right seats. And then to Angela's point, the right people in the culture. And then what are you doing to help them grow? Like that's on all of us. And they have to take initiative as well. Like it has to be and if they don't want to grow and do it, you're not going to talk that person into doing it. And then maybe that's not the right person for your team, depending on how you feel about things. But then you have to invest in them and show them that you're willing to invest in them and help them grow. My ultimate goal always when I build a team is somebody that can do my job better than me. Like that's what I want. And not that I ever want my team to leave, but when team has left, it's because they have a great new opportunity and I can't give it to them. And so that's something too, that like be always thinking about how are you building that bench? Because if you are a good leader, you're going to build your team into, if you can't find a place for them on your organization, was with somebody else. And you have to be okay with that, to understand that you're like, that's the best way to actually be a leader.
Yeah, so on the flip side of this, we had the opportunity to have really great open conversations about supplier and vendor management and integrating them into the brand. And on the flip side of that, we had a great open discussion with our supplier partners who were there, which was actually a really great open discussion. And so one of the challenges they brought is how do we better integrate in with brands? And one of our CMOs came to the table and said, how do we get third parties better to integrate with us? So it was a really good discussion. And I think it opened a lot of eyes. And I think we probably could have talked about it for hours on end. But Will, where are your thoughts on this and kind of how that discussion played out?
Yeah, I thought this was probably one of the most interesting conversations that we got to have this last week. In particular, because as we at franchise organizations, a lot of times, especially off the conversation we just had about people, is that sometimes we can't afford to bring in every single person, right? If we would all love to have budgets that would include teams of 20 that can bring everything in house and maybe run everything the way that we want to all the time. Vendors and partners in particular are so crucial to what we do. So the conversation has to be talked about. In fact, this was one of the CMOs, like one thing that they brought to the table was, how do I work better with agency partners? Because a lot of times those expectations can seem rosy in the beginning and then turn out to not be so after you guys partner together. So this was a long discussion that we had, very, very fruitful. And I have a particular strong feeling about this because I came from the supplier side. I was a part of an agency and we did fantastic work. But when I went on the client side, it was a different mindset. What should I expect from them? And so the conversation went really well. We talked a lot about expectations during the sales process and the handoff between marketing or the support or the account team on that side, if you're using that agency partner, and what that looked like, how to best communicate your brand vision and values. What's your message? What does the creative look like? What does that brand book need to say? And how does the agency need to understand that and live and breathe that? How does the account rep actually affect the overall performance? Even if actual performance is good, maybe that account rep isn't really stepping up to the plate and representing the brand well, right? So there was so many different pieces of so many different interesting things that we got to talk about in relationship with the franchise partner or the franchise system and the agency partner. I thought it was really productive.
So I'll
Yeah.
just chime in. Unfortunately, I missed that session, but having been on the agency side earlier in my career, it's been many years. But I'll just say this, we all work with partners. We all work with many partners. We've all probably hired and fired many partners, right? So I think we all have an idea of what the ideal partnership relationship looks like. At the end of the day, partners want to do a good job. No one kind of joins your account at any point sales process, onboarding, more mature, let's just say 2 years in, wanting to do a bad job for you, right? But at some point, maybe service levels fall off. I would just say, from my experience on both sides, like it's a partnership. It's a true partnership. You're responsible for success and they're responsible for success. And just like you work with your team members, there has to be ongoing, constant communication and check-in points. And so I think if you set that expectation from the point you hire them, even in the sales process, to your expectation that you want this to be a long-term partnership, unless you don't, unless it's a short-term engagement, then you have to agree to have regular points of communication. And at the point where either you or them feel that there's a struggle or a fall off in service levels, you need to be direct. You need to say, I didn't feel that the service, you were meeting service levels, whatever your language is. I'm not saying you say it exactly like that, but so-and-so didn't meet my expectation, or that creative, you know what, it was met, or it was whatever, your feelings are. I think if you're direct, they appreciate it and you feel better. Like your team expresses what needs to be expressed and then you move forward. Don't look in the rearview mirror. You have to go forward. And that, I found that to be the most effective. If it's still, it's kind of like you have to give them, whatever in the contract, 15 days to cure, what have you. You kind of have that mindset, but if you're open and honest, look, my favorite people are on the supplier side in this business outside of this group. But I mean, my best friends that I've fired as a partner are still my best friends. So I think it's just open and honest communication every day. I'm not saying you have check-in calls every day, but you have to just be transparent, just like you would with your team.
I think
Yeah, and also,
sorry,
go ahead.
I
I was gonna
think
say,
one of the things that we kind of, it seemed like we all kind of came to the same conclusion is that in franchising, the agency partnership, and I come from the agency side as well. So the agency partnerships seem to have become very turnkey because it's a franchise system. So we've become this very turnkey approach, and we've lost the custom nature of it, and we've lost the strategic relationship building, thought leadership. Like, it's oftentimes the brand is coming to the agency for ideas instead of the agency presenting ideas and strategy. And it's kind of flipped from the traditional agency partnership role. And so I think that was some eye-opening things to take a look at, because it's become challenging for all of these brands, whether it's the Fran Dev side or the consumer side. We've just become so custom and turnkey, and I think we've lost that in the process. And I think that could help fix a lot of the challenges. Sorry, Ashley, go ahead.
That's okay, because that's exactly what I was going to say. Because we were talking about how a good partner comes to you with ideas. Like, you shouldn't have to go and say, tell me something cool that I should be doing, or what success are you having with your other partners? They should know your goals. That's on us, right? To communicate what our goals as a brand are to our partners and give them as much information as we possibly can so that they can then better help us. And then based on those goals, they should be coming to us with those ideas and strategy, and not the other way around. To Leanne's point, what she was saying, like, we hire partners and work with these vendor partners because they have expertise in a certain area that we can't bring in-house, either cost effectively, it's too many people, just doesn't make sense. And also they have experience working with other franchise brands. And so they're seeing things in the market that are, they're a little outside of our four walls, but they also need to understand what's happening within our four walls to bring that information. So it's that two-way communication where it's not transactional. That's why it's easy for people to move from one partner to another, is because if there's not that relationship and truly being part of the team on both sides, then you're going to move on because it doesn't make sense for either one of you.
And I'll just wrap this up real quick, because I know we're running close on time, and we have one more thing we want to cover. But just to be clear, we did have agency partners and vendor suppliers in the room for this discussion. And from the flip side, one of the agency partners said that they also want to be an extension of staff, and they want to be integrated better into the systems. And so, if to our earlier point, to have those open lines of communication is really important, because they want it too. And I think we're just missing that gap. And so I think if we continue to have these conversations and we stay aligned from the beginning, throughout the partnership, then I think that we can have better experiences with each other.
Very true. And me being on the supplier side as well with the National Franchise Show, I got to tell you, yeah, we're a service-based company, right? We're providing you with a service, and you're absolutely right, Ashley, when you're saying it should not be transactional. Nothing should be transactional, whether you're taking a long-term service or it's a one-time shot or coming back multiple times. However it is, there should be somewhat of an onus on the supplier. Yes, there's always a onus on the franchisor to relay what you're looking for, what you want, so on and so forth. But it's up to us as a service to call and make sure you're happy and figure out what's next and what's up. And so I think it's key for the suppliers, if you want your Zors to like you, to be in the communicating with them and doing what they want, and being at their beck and call. It's just my thought. So, but yeah, as Leanne says, sorry, we do need to move on to the next one, and this is this is probably her favorite one, the value to peer groups, Leanne. No, Angela, if you could tell us the value of peer groups.
Yeah, I mean, I think before being a part of this group, I feel like I've always talked to people about the value of either having a mentor or having some other people to talk to and piggyback off of outside of your direct day-to-day. This particular peer group has been invaluable to me. And I think what a group of people in the same kind of function and tackling a lot of the same problems, but in slightly different ways or in slightly different infrastructures, it really helps kind of get that third party outside, not in the weeds perspective. It's basically like having free, really educated, really smart marketing consultants working for your company. So I can come in and, talk about something that my head has been in for weeks or months, and then somebody will mention something that seems so obvious when they say it, but that I have somehow overlooked as a key part of what I'm tackling. So it's just so helpful to be able to kind of get different perspectives, knowing that I'm trying to solve a problem that's going to be affecting a lot of people with different perspectives. And so it's kind of like it is really sort of another focus group to go off of. And one of the things that I found really funny this week and having the dedicated time with our peer group was, it made me think about, so I'm a mom of two young kids, and there's some other young mom friends that I have, and well, moms of young kids, I should say. I don't know what the cutoff is to be consider myself a young mom, but we plan these nights where we're like, let's have a mom's night, no kids. And then we're so excited about it. And then we get there and all we do is talk about our kids. It sort of felt like that a little bit. Like we had these, really intense sessions all day and workshopping and helping each other tackle problems. And then we'd have, dinner or something at night, and it was just going to be, oh, let's get out of it. Now we can talk about stuff other than work. But of course, we just continued to slip right back into marketing conversations throughout the night. So it really kind of made me laugh just reflecting on that. But it is like, we just couldn't stop seeking more and more value out of this. So I really appreciate it. I think whether it's something that you find within your company, within your function, like maybe an organization in your community that's focused on your function, like American Marketing Association chapter or something like that, whether it's another franchise marketing group. But I think there's a ton of value in finding groups like this. And I know there are some other groups even within this network designed for different levels as well.
Yeah. And I was going to say, not only getting like the different perspective on your problems, but hearing other people's problems, because they're also either a problem that you have had, a problem that you're currently having, because we only get to each bring one big problem. So we all have more than one big thing that we're dealing with. So something you're currently having or something you're going to have in the future. So there were some topics that we talked about that I was like, that's going to be my problem in 18 months. So I'm going to keep all these notes. I find them because I don't know where I put them. I'm going to keep all these notes and refer back to these, and then call everybody and be like, hey, remember when we talked about that? Now I need, like, we told you to do this. Did that work? What should I change some things? What should I do? And so it gives you the ability, like we have the formal setting that we have, but then we also have the one-off relationships where we just call each other and text each other and email each other constantly asking questions to make sure that we're making the right decisions in what we're doing and getting that feedback.
And what I'll say about just really quickly is the structure of this, the value Angela and Ashley have covered really, really well. But just the way, Leanne, you've structured these kinds of conferences, I think brings value that's unique from other conferences that we all go to. Right, those are great. We all pick and choose the ones that are valuable to us at the stage of life our brand is at. But in particular, for you as a professional, the reason I like this structure is because we spend so much focused time with individuals who are all in our seat. And we'll spend, 45 minutes, an hour in my case, because I just have so many problems, focused in on talking about the things that we're going through. And again, like Angela said, we're getting great feedback from these people who all have been through it or are going through it. And we really get to spend that intense time, and it just really makes a difference when we structure it that way, because we can really find value that we might not get otherwise from the larger conferences, which are great and have their purpose. But this in particular gives us a way to really dialogue and get to the root of these issues. So
Will's number one problem, if anybody's wondering, is that he has an Android and cannot get the photos that the rest of us can get.
No,
So.
seriously, there were
Called out.
27 people there. 26 of them had iPhones.
I am special is what you're telling me, and I appreciate it.
Well, Michael
Will
will
is special, but
corner.
I have two things to add. What everyone said, ditto. But I will say this is the most amazing group that I've ever been a part of. But to camp on one thing that Angela said, we had this group. You have 18. If you've ever hired like a personal coach, this is having 18 personal coaches. All wrapped into one for all different reasons. You can call all 18 of them at any time. The events that we have twice a year kind of elevate that, in that you can come together, and it's the epitome of Stephen Covey's sharpen the saw. You get to come out of your business, you get to refresh, you get to energize, and you solve problems, and you bring all 18 problems and solutions back into your business, to what Ashley said. So you come with one problem, even though we all have 25 problems that we're all trying to solve in a day. You bring one, but you bring the solutions of all 18 back with you, because again, like what Ashley said, for instance, if you're not working on an SEO challenge on your website, someone else is, and you're bringing those back in real time. So it's the most amazing group I've ever been a part of. It's truly, again, Leanne is working with other mastermind groups potentially for your discipline. You should check it out. I'm so thankful for this group and glad to be part of this advisory committee to help you, Leanne and Michael. It's amazing.
Yeah, and Marci, I
say
think that last point that you made is the point for people to take home that need to sell this in to get support from their company leaders or whoever's making those types of decisions. Is value isn't just of you observing knowledge, it's you essentially getting advice from all these other CMOs and marketing leaders from different organizations.
And it's the authenticity of the advice too, and the transparency within the group. That's something, that at the beginning we all said, okay, be open and honest. It doesn't leave here outside of this podcast. But these are general things. We're not telling all the secrets. And so that people are able to have those real conversations. Like, I'm not going to lie, there were tears shed over the last couple of days. That's the depth of the conversations that we have, which I think that's something that makes it unique.
Well, thank
You
you.
just called me out for my iPhone, for the lack of iPhone.
Yeah.
So
Nate will
I don't
cry
know.
because he didn't have an iPhone.
Maybe not everything is sacred. Okay, I'm
That's
just
where
saying.
the tears were shed.
Yeah.
Excuse me, hold the phone literally. There's two things here. Number one, a shameless plug to all these lovely ladies. What they were saying was go to hello-mastermind.com for more information. And Will, don't let these lovely ladies bully you, my friend. iPhone, I would not trade
We'll
it for
stick
anything in the
together.
world.
We're the only two. Thank you all so much for joining us and for spending your time this week being away with your families and your jobs and your teams and being able to kind of really lean into everything that we were able to experience in Fort Worth. And hope you all have a wonderful weekend. And thank you.
Bye, guys.
That was amazing. Well, it's so nice to have a bunch of smart people on. That was great. I really enjoyed that. Well, unfortunately, I wasn't at the mastermind with you. But was there anything new that you learned here today, Leanne, or they
Well,
pretty much
nothing
covered it?
new because I had already heard all that this week, but I will say it was a room full of very smart marketers. So our franchise systems, at least those ones are in good hands. But yeah, I mean, we covered so many different topics. That was just a few, and you can see like how in depth those conversations really got. And it was so good. We had so much fun and learned a lot.
Amazing. Yeah,
Really good.
the peer advisory is phenomenal. I highly recommend it to anyone listening. And I got to say, these marketing people, they're not that bad. I when I originally got on
Watch
this
it.
podcast, yeah, Leanne was telling me we're going to get on with 5 marketers, and I'm on the Fran Dev side. And I said, well, I don't know, sometimes less marketer and Fran Dev, but it's great. It's really good to see things through the marketing side, and this was great. You marketing people are fantastic, I gotta say.
We're smarter than we look. We can't do math, but we're smarter than we look.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, so it was awesome having them on, and like I said, this experience was really good. But so it's great to wrap up this episode. If you liked what you heard, please leave us a 5-star review. It really helps us grow. So please subscribe on Spotify and or YouTube, and soon we'll be on other channels. We'll see you in a couple weeks for more unfiltered news and education from both sides of the border. In the meantime, here's what's on our calendar in our final segment, brought to you by the National Franchise Show. Hey, you like them, right?
Yeah, they're nice people. They're okay. Franchise Mingle. All right. So everyone knows Franchise Mingle, which is the upcoming events for the remainder of the year. We do have a bunch of franchise shows coming up. We have Tampa and Philadelphia in September. We have Atlanta and Jacksonville in October. And we have Los Angeles in November. If you are expanding your franchise or looking for qualified candidates in any of those regions, then please feel free to reach out, and I will pass your information on to a person that will sell you a booth. And also, I know that the spring 2025 schedule was just released. So if you're looking for another 8 distinct markets, then reach out. In addition to the franchise show, of course, we have the IFA Advocacy Summit coming up September 9th to 11 in DC. We have the Franchise Springboard also coming up September 18th to 20th in Philly. FBR's Operations Summit, October 22 to 24 in Denver. And then the newly launched Let's Grow Canada. We have just opened registrations and sponsorships for November 6th and 7th in Toronto. So looking forward to that one. And also just launched and learned the date, save this date for Let's Grow Dallas, February 2nd and 4th, 2025. This episode is brought to you by Tenet Financial, Subtle Strauss, Northeast Color, the National Franchise Show, and Franchise Assembly. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Tune in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Thank you.